This is Robert Harper with Virginia Farm Bureau's Grain Division. Glad to bring you the Merchandiser Minute today, Friday, November the 22nd, 2019. With a lot of sleepy market action this week, one trader put it just seemed like we've almost set into holiday trading mode a week early. Let's take a look at some of the headlines this week that had an effect on the futures part of your price. We read a lot this week about the largest in 10 years railroad strike in Canada between the CN Rail Line and the Teamsters Union. It looks like about 3,000 plus employees involved, and they're seeing some major disruptions up there already, and that's definitely negatively impacting the grain trade and also the propane shipments in Canada. We know, and we've been talking for 2 weeks about propane shortages. Not necessarily a shortage in the United States, there's plenty of propane, but a difficulty in getting it to the destinations that need it. And now Canada is experiencing some of that with this railroad strike. 4 days old, hopefully they can get that resolved. We saw a lot of back and forth this week with the China-U.S. trade talks. We got mixed signals from both sides. We have seen China ask for a face-to-face meeting next week in Beijing. We saw the U.S. come down pretty hard on China for some human rights violations with what's going on in Hong Kong. And at the same time, we saw the U.S. ask China for a detailed written proposal on proposed ag purchases, and China refused to generate such a document. So a lot of back and forth this week. And remember, we also had Robert Lighthizer and Nancy Pelosi meeting this week on the USMCA. It's everybody's hope that this document, signed, I believe, in September of 2018 by Canada, Mexico, and the U.S., there's some hope that a vote would come up in Congress in December to ratify the USMCA. And those two have met this week, but there's no news that I've seen that that vote is going to come to the floor. As we know, the news cycle has been very much dominated by the public impeachment hearings, and that does look like it's had a negative impact not only on the China trade talks, but also on the USMCA as well. We had another week. This is the third week in a row where we can say certain equity markets made new highs. The Dow had another record high close this week. And again, we see speculators here and speculators around the world wanting to put money in U.S. equities. Remember, this money flow can cause a vacuum that creates a negative impact on commodity markets, and that's definitely hurting us with futures prices. When we take a look at how the futures did this week, not so pretty. In this lackluster trade, we had corn, December corn futures down 3 cents for the week to close at $3.68. We had January soybeans down 22 cents for the week. That is a 7-week low, closing at $8.97 today. And remember, the close today below the $9 mark is just awful from a technical perspective, and it really sets up the possibility of going back to our recent low around $8.65. So keep your eye on that and think about that if you have soybeans that you need to price before the end of this calendar year. December wheat was up 12 cents for the week to close at $5.15. When we look at some USDA numbers, we got the export inspections report as usual on Monday, way above average on what got loaded this week on Chinese vessels. That's always good news to see. When we got the sales report yesterday, Thursday, we had a way above export sales report in beans. China made another purchase. They were number one on the list, and it was our best export sales week in 10 weeks for corn. Remember, we've said on this platform many times in the last 4 months that export sales for corn are just very poor. We were getting beat out by Argentina. So it was nice to see a great corn export sales report this week, best in 10 weeks. Remember, next week is going to be a short week with multiple sessions closed on the Chicago Board of Trade. Be watching for any news on trade and tariffs, if that face-to-face meeting will happen between us and China. And remember, one of the important things that these two trade teams are up against, December the 15th, A whole new round of tariffs are set to go into effect, us on China and China on us on December 15th. And the hope for the last month has been to get a phase 1 trade deal done so those could be lifted. We do have snow forecasted across many parts of the Corn Belt next week. The corn that's out there remaining to be harvested, that's obviously going to be very difficult on those folks. And please give us a call here. We've had very positive changes this week in local bean basis. We'd like to talk to you about that. And also remember, if you have any unpriced bushels on December futures contracts, that we have to get out of those by Wednesday of next week. This is Robert at Virginia Farm Bureau's Grain Division.